Hello once again to the studios of Four Wheels Good. This week we cover the range of current automotive offerings, from the new improved but humble Corsa to the muscle roadster from Renault Spider. Steve Fowler from What Car and our own Mike Rutherford will be behind the wheels later on. Remember BMC, our classic car expert John Stanley will be presenting a feature on BMC in the programme. John Wright will be continuing his paint job in our weekly Inside Motors feature, and we discover what the forecourt of the 21st century will look like. But first, Mr. Rutherford has managed to borrow the new sporty Seat for the day, and I don't think he wants to give it back.
They've done it again. A couple of weeks ago, of course, we were talking about the tiny Seat Arosa, which has to be the best value for money sub-super mini on the market. Now the Spanish company have come up with this little beauty. Now the Ibiza has been around for a while, as you probably know, but not in this sort of guise. This is the 16-valve GTI Cupra version. It's based on the car that gave them their recent F2 rally success, and it is effectively a Golf GTI wearing Seat badges, if you like. It's basically the hot Ibiza, and hot it is. Very well equipped, got a great interior, but 150 brake horsepower, do 0 to 60 in something like 8 seconds, twice the legal speed limit. And it's Seat once again demonstrating that they're a fun company. They concentrate on performance, on quality, and they've done a great job. I mean, visually, although it's not a new shape, it does look the part, I'm sure you'll agree. What is this car called? I think it's called the Seat Cupra, whatever Cupra means, Sport GTI 2-litre 16-valve. Yeah, I think that's it. If you want this car, you go into a dealership and you say, can I please have a Seat Cupra Sport GTI 2-litre 16-valve, please? I mean, nonsense. How about something? I think it's about time we had some names that are a little bit simpler and a little bit easier to understand and remember. Like I said, this car is based on the Seat Ibiza rally car, and the rally car has these white 16-inch wheels, and of course the road-going version has the same wheels, proving the point, of course, that this car is very different from a standard Ibiza. In fact, Seat say that this is the only car on the market, the only super mini on the market with wheels this big, and they look very nice when the car's clean. But let me just warn you that I've only been driving this vehicle for a day or two, and already there's an awful lot of brake dust come off those discs and is on those wheels. And while we're looking at this sort of area of the car, also has Michelin Pilot tyres, and it has ABS, anti-lock brakes, and traction control. So if you throw this thing off the road, you will have to do something pretty damn special. This does a great job. It's got a height adjustable seat so that you can really sink low. Height adjustable steering wheel while we're at the traffic lights. I can play with that. We've got these lovely white dials, black figures on white dials, and then at night, instead of the traditional green lights illumination which we see on most cars, this is orange background lighting, and there's a rheostat here, an light adjuster to ensure that you can tone that down, and God, it needs to be toned down, because the combination of the white background and the orange lights are a bit garish, but like I said, you can tone it down no problem. I love this little trip computer on here. It tells me that since the computer was last set, I've been driving for 88 hours and 33 minutes. Can you believe that? 88 hours and 33 minutes behind the wheel of this car. I've done 3,301 miles. I've done an average speed of 37 miles an hour. That might sound pretty slow, but don't forget, of course, a lot of those miles would have been around town, 10, 12 miles an hour. Got an average fuel consumption, this is an interesting one, 29.5 mpg, and that ain't bad going, I think, for a 2 litre 16 valve sports car. I'm not sure about these switches here for the electric windows being down here. The logical place for the switches is here. I love the leather seats, really nice bucket seats with lots of side support. I'm not too sure about this design. It's on the door panels as well here, but I don't know, 10 out of 10 for being a little bit different. And what about this? I mean, really, I know the Spaniards are really into putting bits and bobs up behind the sun visor, and sure enough, this Spanish firm have given them a place to put it. Look, radio is a nonsense. I mean, God, what does it mean? There's a button here that says loud expert. I just don't know what it means. I haven't a clue. I know I've got my jacket on, but it's a bit warm in here actually. It's a very dark interior and not very airy. There's no sunroof and there's no air conditioning, and on some Seats, although they're modestly priced cars, air conditioning comes as standard. You're going to love this. The reason there's no sunroof, the reason there's no air conditioning on this car is because they want to save weight. I mean, it's unbelievable, isn't it? What a load of They want to save weight, so they take out the sunroof, or they don't put it in the first place, and they don't fit air conditioning. I mean, why not go the whole hog? Why not take the seats out? Now, this is the crunch. How does it drive? If you're getting your kicks from roaring away from traffic lights and burning rubber and playing silly games with other boy racers, well, you might be a little bit disappointed in this car. Warm hatch, not hot hatch. Well, what's the verdict? Well, I've got a spec sheet here that's as long as your arm. Let me just run you through some of the things that this car is equipped with, just some of them. Starting from the bottom up: leather seats, anti-theft alarm, transponder immobiliser, height adjustable steering wheel, split folding rear seat, height adjustable driver's seat, multifunction trip computer, security coded RDS stereo cassette, the 16-inch wheels we've mentioned, the remote central locking, electric windows, ABS, power steering, driver and passenger airbag. The list goes on and on. The important thing, I guess, the most important thing, is that this car is 14.5 grand. And although that's not expensive, it's a little bit too expensive, I think, for this particular car. It's a little bit overpriced. You know, Seat have built a reputation for value for money. Shave a grand or two off that 14,500, I think you'd have a winner, boys. The other thing worth mentioning, of course, is that this car is a Group 13 insurance, so bear that one in mind too. Interesting car, great little car, 14.5 grand, nah.
The Seat Ibiza Cupra. Well, Mike will be back later with the Renault Spider, the chunky yellow roadster that looks a great deal of fun to drive. The problem is with small cars is that if you're a family man, they score low on the practicality meter. That's why we see so many MPVs, multi-purpose vehicles or people movers on the road. But are they really all that practical apart from the family holiday jaunt? Well, next week, Four Wheels Good is an MPV special featuring all the main vehicles in this recent class. Which is the best value? Which has the most gadgets? Why does Mike Rutherford hate them so much? We'll find out next week on our MPV special. Well, now, John Stanley reports from the Heritage Centre in Gaydon to find the story behind 3 magic letters.
This is probably one of the most important cars that ever came out of BMC. It was actually the first. It was used as a device for manipulating and drawing the company together. It was the first time that there had been an engine with an overhead valve in mass production. It was facing opposition from Morris Miners, who had side valve engines from before the war. It managed to create a chassis-less construction, which made it economic under those conditions. And the world really was waiting for one car to start the mass production process and to revive the industry. This car was the prototype of a convertible. It was never actually made, but it did represent the beginning. It was 1951 when it was announced, and 1952 when they went into production. It was the beginning of a whole dynasty of cars, all based around the same engine, all the concept of an employee from before the war who moved through the ranks into the most powerful position in the industry. This is the Austin A30. It is not powerful, it is not exciting to drive, but it was the beginning for BMC. This car belongs to the National Heritage Centre, and today is their very first open day. We've come to take a look around now. We're now looking at a Christmas present that Fred decided to give himself. And here is Fred, and here is his Christmas present. Hello.
Hello.
This car was something that you had always wanted?
It was, and for as long as I can remember, I've always wanted a Nash Metropolitan. This one was advertised before Christmas, and I rang up in January. It was still for sale, so I went up and had a look at it in the snow and took the plunge.
What had attracted you in the first place? Because it's a very unusual looking car.
I think it's the styling and the sort of slightly outrageous colours that they were all painted in, and they were all the two-tone colours apart from a few special editions.
Did the hardtop come with it?
No, the hardtop was a different model. There's no detachable hardtop on this one.
Does it leak?
Yes, it leaks quite a lot. If you wash it, you have to keep the hose well away from all the joins.
What year was it, in fact, when it was built?
This one's 1957. They started off very early in the 50s. I think the first was about 1951. Most of them were made for the American market, where they sold around 100,000, and they started selling in England in around 57, 58.
What sort of value is placed on it now?
Well, this one's probably worth around £6,000. For a total wreck, for restoration, you'd still have to pay about £1,500.
One of the most significant parts of BMC's activity was what was rather rudely called badge engineering. And this was actually a very sensible commercial exercise where they developed cars and then fed them out to the different dealerships with the appropriate mark names on them. That wasn't just commercially greedy. In those times, there were separate garages for each mark, and they were rivals even in the same town. And so it was necessary for them, if they were going to succeed, to give Wolseley and Riley and Austin and Morris their own cars in order to compete with each other. It was actually very cheap and very easy for them financially. It allowed them, for instance, to make an Austin 1100, at the same time make a fancy Princess 1300, and they were able to make a Morris for a simple day-to-day use. It was a very shrewd exercise. It paid great dividends. It's only cynics that really consider it was stupid.
Doesn't it make you feel proud to be British? John Stanley there reporting from the Heritage Centre at Gaydon, a stone's throw from Rover and a spurt down the motorway from the NEC, where we were invited to a fascinating exhibition about the future of forecourts. Find out about brushless car washes and robotic fuel pumps later in the programme. Right, we'll take a quick break and then we'll find out the improvements Vauxhall have made to the new Corsa. Hi and welcome back to the only weekly topical motoring TV show, Four Wheels Good. Well, if you're looking for a new Super Mini at the moment, you may have noticed some subtle changes in the look of the Vauxhall Corsa. But as Steve Fowler reports, the improvements are far more than skin deep.
I'm not a huge fan of Coronation Street. I normally watch just to see what's up on the shelves in the cabin, see if my copy of What Car's up there. But what should happen the other day, there I was sitting at home, comfy in my armchair, up came the adverts, and Ruby Wax was sitting there, reading a copy of our magazine. But what was Ruby waxing lyrical about this time? This time it seems Vauxhall had sent Ruby all the way to Monte Carlo to talk about this, the new Vauxhall Corsa. So this is it, no doubt a few £1 million worth of investment, the new Vauxhall Corsa. Doesn't look a whole lot different really, does it? Save for this, the Vauxhall family grille. The bumpers seem to be a little bit smoother, and round the side there's some new rubbing strips down the side, and hey, new wheel trims. To be fair, there was nothing really wrong with the Corsa's shape in the first place. It's still one of the cutest superminis around and can hold its head up high in front of such radical rivals as Ford's car. But where the Corsa really scores is on the inside. It's got one of the biggest interiors of any supermini, and that's worth knowing. Now I'm 6 foot tall, and there are a few superminis that I can feel quite this comfortable in. Most superminis where there's a sunroof fitted, you lose a couple of inches of headroom. But with this car, you've got a height adjustable seat so I can take it down as low as possible. And look, I've got about an inch to spare, very comfortable. What is more, there's plenty of stowage space inside, a good sized glove box. And in the back, I don't think I'd mind spending too much time back there either. Decent amount of head and leg room. Wouldn't be too uncomfortable on a long journey. So there's plenty of room inside, with more space than say a Ford Fiesta or Volkswagen Polo even. But what about the boot? That's crucial in a small car. We know Ford's car has a minimal boot and you can hardly get a week's shopping in there. Look at this, I think I'll probably get a month's shopping in there. What Vauxhall have also done is very clever. They put a new ratchet mechanism in this Corsa, so with the split fold seats you can adjust the amount of back room or boot space that you've got. Very ingenious. So what else is new in the Corsa range? Well, in this, the entry-level model, there's a brand new 1 litre 3-cylinder engine. It has 4 valves per cylinder, and what 3 cylinders give you is a great deal of fuel economy. There's less friction inside the engine, so you'll be going past those petrol stations when you used to be pulling in. In addition to a new 1 litre engine under the bonnet, there's a whole host of changes under the skin of the car. Vauxhall have asked Lotus for their help in developing the chassis, which in the old Corsa was well below the class standards. Lotus's tweaks and adjustments have turned the Corsa into a fairly well handling car, and it now rides an awful lot better than it used to. To put it into context, if you think of the old Corsa as riding on square wheels, very uncomfortable, the new one rides on octagonal wheels, so it's a lot better, but still some way off the class best. Whilst this engine struggles to get out of its own way, it's pleasantly refined at speed, and once it's up to power, the lack of performance doesn't really notice that much. This car has got non-assisted steering, but Vauxhall has introduced a new electric power steering with the 1 litre Corsa, and in our experience it's well worth investigating it. In fact, it works better than the hydraulic system that you get on the bigger engine Corsas. Like the exterior, the dash has remained pretty much unchanged. All the dials are there, very easy to use, they all feel quite well, and build quality is a strong point for this Super Mini. Not changing things isn't really too bad, because this has always been a good looking car inside that works very well. You've got the split level display for the radio, which also gives you the temperature reading, and all the dials are very well laid out, all the controls have a good quality feel to them. So as Super Minis go, the look and feel of this inside is very good indeed. One thing Vauxhall don't manage to do, despite many improvements, is produce a gear change that shifts as fluidly as say a Ford's does. This one, 5-speed gearbox on the new 1 litre, is still very stodgy, a little rubbery, and if you really want to make some very swift progress, it does its best to hinder you. Overall, Vauxhall have done a very good job with this new Corsa. It's now a far better car than it ever was. Rides and handles a lot better than the old car, but it's still not quite up to the class best. If I were to choose between this 1 litre car and a budget-priced Ford car, I think I'd go for the Ford. Its blend of style, refinement and slightly more pace than this car gives it the edge for me.
But don't take Steve's word for it. Try the cars out for yourself and you decide. Well, whatever you drive, you need a good solid set of tyres to get you around safely. Nikki Fox reports from the Yokohama tyre plant in Japan on how important tyres are to drivers in the land of the rising sun.
Tokyo, where individuals are expected to conform. But when they take to four wheels, it's a personal statement and a love affair with one car accessory in particular. A typical downtown Tokyo tyre depot, but in Japan, tyre shops are a bit different. The country's 60 million car owners are so style conscious that they'll spend thousands on high-performance tyres or oversized alloy rims for even the humblest of cars. But when it comes to sports models, the sky's the limit. The owner of this Nissan Skyline is about to drop a cool £4,500 on new rims and tyres. The Skyline is a sports model not available in Britain, and it's the favourite of many Japanese boy racers whose bolt-on accessories turn street Skylines into nearly full-blown race machines.
16これはタイヤ16インチなんですけれども、今日は17インチのタイヤとホイールに買いに来ました。
These tires and wheels are 16 inch, and he said he came in today to put on 17 inch tires and wheels.
That sounds like rather a luxury. Why?
サーキットを走るんで
He takes his car on the circuit, and 17 inch tires give a lot more performance than 16.
Now, this is a very special car, and you've obviously fitted a lot of racing features to it. Where do the wheels and tyres rate in importance?
中のものとかも結構大切ですけど
Of course, all the components are important, but the tire is a consumable, aspect. So it's important to really take care on what tire you choose because it wears the fastest.
The orderly traffic hides a host of high-performance wannabes because even for humble Japanese family cars, sales of sporty, low-profile tyres outstrip those in Britain. For proprietor Seiichi Nagashima, this is a sign of Japanese individuality. Given the high price of accessories like these, why do you think specialist wheels and tyres are so popular?
ファッション性とあと
Well, there is a fashion statement to be made, but it also it's a personal statement more than fashion. Each person has their car, and it gives them their own identity.
And would it tend mainly to be sports cars, or do people dress up quite ordinary cars with special accessories like these?
スポーツカーの方が多いけど
So the sports car in particular, of course, people are interested in it. But on the fashion end, you'll see just a normal passenger car.
So just about anything goes.
Yes.
And don't think the fashion stops at this. The word from California is that 19-inch rims are becoming all the rage.
Nikki Fox reporting from Tokyo. Well, it's time once again to join Ginny, Buckley and Mike Rutherford deep in the conversation pit. And this time they're discussing another extremely expensive motor that somehow got conveniently delivered outside Mike's door.
Mark, you've been sort of talking a lot to us.
I do talk a lot.
You do talk a lot. Now, Mike, you've been talking to us about your experiences in the Renault Espace, which weren't very good, but you've been driving another Renault that you like a lot more. Tell us about that.
I mean, I am a Renault fan, believe it or not. And of course, how can you not be a fan of a company that has such success on the Formula One circus year in, year out? And, nobody's got any doubts about Renault's engineering abilities. It's just some of the products they bring to market. I don't want to start getting into the Espace again because I'll start nodding off. But, again, talk about chalk and cheese. The Renault Spider, this fabulous two-seater car they've just brought out. I mean, think of what Renault have learned from the Formula One world in recent years. Formula One world champions, of course, for as long as I can remember. They basically said to themselves, let's give people who see the success we have most Sunday afternoons, let's give them a Formula One car for the road. And they've done that with the Spider. It's a very, very crude car. It's raw, it's basic, you won't find any frills on it, speedometer, rev counter, one or two other bits and bobs, no radio, no heater. They say there's no heater, but you actually feel the heat from the engine. That's the way you warm yourself up. It's the sort of car where you really need goggles, you need a hat. I think, well, I've got mixed feelings about it because the one that they originally launched in France last year at the Paul Ricard circuit, I had a great time driving that car. One of the best days of my life, whizzing around the circuit and the neighbouring streets without a windscreen, and it was almost like a sort of four-wheel motorbike, if you like.
Yeah, the version we're getting here has a windscreen.
Yeah, and I've got mixed feelings about that. In fact, probably in the real world, you'd want a windscreen, because believe it or not, you don't realise how much stuff is thrown up into your face. I mean, a lot of people throw stuff in my face, but
so you're quite used to it, really, aren't
punches
you?
usually, actually, and
drinks,
drinks, all sorts of things. Writs, libel writs, that kind of stuff. But to be quite serious, if you're going to drive the thing without the windscreen, you need a full face crash helmet, which is what I was using down in the south of France. With the windscreen, of course, you can drive it just like any other car, and it is wonderful. It's just, talk about head turner. I know they're rare, and it's always hard to tell when you're driving one of the first cars ever in the country, but I was just driving around the streets around the south of England near Windsor, and just seeing people stopping in their tracks. It's this lovely bright yellow colour. They do a gorgeous red as well. Crude, basic.
How does it handle? Has it got the elements of the Formula One, the sports car feelings in it?
It's like a go-kart. Anyone who's done any karting will know that feeling of, it's like going around on rails. It doesn't matter what you do, somehow the back, you don't lose the back. It complements you as a driver, in fact. But it's almost the sort of car, it doesn't matter how it drives. It's just that it's so honest and so back to basics. That's what I like about it. I hate cars with too many gadgets and frills and technology for the sake of technology. This is just pure, undiluted.
It's a car for the weekend, isn't it?
Yeah, it's definitely a second car.
But an expensive car for the weekend.
Yeah, well, probably £25,000, something of that order. But a great car, I would have thought, if you're the sort of person that can discipline yourself only to do a couple of thousand miles a year in a car, and it's very definitely a second or third car. You couldn't possibly run this as your one and only car. It's a sort of down and dirty roadster. If it's raining, you're going to get wet. The interior is going to get wet. It doesn't matter though. It's an aluminium interior. It's practically got aluminium seats, not quite, but there's nothing to be sabotaged on the inside because there's virtually nothing there. It's a raw, crude car that I would just love to have in my garage, and I would predict in years to come worth a lot of money.
And from those words, raw and crude, I would say that it would suit you down to the ground, Mike.
Absolutely, couldn't be better.
Mike and Ginny there. I bet the Spider gets loads of admiring glances every time it gets filled up. But do you admire your local forecourt? Well, after the break, we'll find out about the latest technologies at UK filling stations. Hi, welcome back. Remember some weeks ago, Steve Vokin showed us around the 1930s garage reconstruction at the National Motor Museum. Well, then petrol was stored in funny square cans, and often garages did blacksmith work as well as fix bikes. Well, these days, forecourts are multi-purpose, high-tech affairs, and as Ian Royle reports, things are getting more automated.
Today to the NEC in Birmingham, to the Forecourt International Show, to find out what's on offer as we drive our cars onto the forecourt of our local petrol station. The latest high-tech pumps, faster ways to pay, and an array of produce from fresh food to fresh bread to the latest fast food. And with Bob Musgrove now, we're on the Atlantis Carsha stand. Bob, tell us the latest thing that's happening in the car wash world.
In the past, customers have used brush wash machines, and there are 21 million motorists in the UK, and 3 million of those use a car wash on a regular basis. We know this from surveys we've carried out. When you survey those people to find out why they don't use car washes on a regular basis, the majority of them tell us that they don't want brushes touching their car. People with BMWs and Mercedes and high-quality cars feel that the brushes damage the surface of the vehicle. In fact, that's not true. The surface can be marred, but it's not scratched, and in fact you can get it off later.
So what have you brought in to replace the brushes?
We followed what's happening in the States, and the States generally in the car wash industry have traditionally led the industry, and from a marketing point of view. And litigation laws are so bad over there that what they've had to do now is to take the brushes off the machines completely, because if you have an antennae or an aerial wrapped up in a brush, it can cause tremendous damage to the car. So they took the brushes off the machine, and they offer car washers that just use high pressure water. And So what we've done together with Cartu, we've come up with a machine that offers that facility. So a driver now can go onto a forecourt, and where he'd traditionally only expect to find a machine with brushes, he now finds he has a machine with brushes and high pressure option. We've come up with a system at Atlantis, which is a water recycling system, which recycles all of the water. So every piece of water that's used on the vehicle is recycled. And this means that operators can save money on water short term, and also operate the car wash in times of drought.
And with Matt Lopez now, we're on the Wayne Dresser stand. Wayne Dresser are the market leader for petrol pumps in the UK. Matt, tell us about this latest petrol pump that you've introduced. We're all used to going to get money out of the hole in the wall at our bank, but when it comes to petrol pumps, automated pumps are not something we seem to like in the UK.
No, it's something that's quite rare. It's common on the continent. Certain countries have sort of taken a shine to actually using this sort of equipment whereby you can actually just turn up on the petrol forecourt and pay at the pump. In the UK, even though the technology's actually been around as a product, it's been offered to customers, there hasn't been an awful lot of take-up. We think this year, though, there's going to be a turnaround, and it's something that people are beginning to demand, expecting. They've been on holiday, they've used it abroad, and they want to use it in the UK as well. It's very simple to use. It's a box that's attached to the pump. When you turn up, all you do is pick up the nozzle that you want to pay with.
Please press a button to select payment method.
And you can either press at the kiosk or at the pump. So you press at the pump, insert your card, follow the instructions, please wait, take your card back, and basically, obviously we don't have a car here, but you start filling away, and then when you're finished, place the nozzle back, that triggers everything off again.
Have a safe journey. Please reinsert your card for a receipt.
And it's a very polite machine, obviously. Put your card back in for the receipt as the instructions, and away you go.
So before it'll actually pump any fuel out, it will verify your card. So I mean, if your card was
safe, if someone's taken your card and they're going to be naughty and use it, this machine will eat it up and make sure that they can't use it anymore.
So it really is a very safe system and so easy to use as well. It's as easy as getting.
It's the polite voice that sort of guides you through, and you just follow the instructions that come up on the screen. It's not a problem at all. Child's play.
The other thing that we're now moving into is what we term the infoscreen, which is the ability to use, and forgive my expression, a television screen. It's a lot more because of the hazardous environment in which it works, but a television screen to use multimedia advertising. It can be used for safety messages, it can be used for traffic information, giving the customer, while standing at the pump, the opportunity of picking up additional information whilst filling his car.
Now at the moment, as we explained before, we've got all three here together, but the technology is coming on stream soon to compress those three into just the one screen.
That certainly is. The first stage would be to take the card reader and bring it onto the screen. And with soft keys, you can bring all of that functionality onto the screen here. The third stage, and we are treading into the somewhat delicate situation of weights and measures and consumer protection, and rightly so. We would like to bring the calculator information onto the screen as well. And as a consequence, instead of three boxes, there will be a single box, the ability to take cards, the ability to give information to the customer, and give all the transaction details as well. Let us select, please, press the basic one there.
So press the basic £2.50 car wash.
And as a result of that, that would get debited to your account on this pump, and the transaction details are shown.
£5 of fuel, £2.50 car wash, £7.50 in total, and it gives us a receipt at the end of the day.
Correct. Now that receipt will be printed out here. In exhibition mode, we'll demonstrate in the top right-hand corner. There comes a receipt, which you remove. It has a 4-digit code number on it. Drive round to the car wash, insert the 4-digit code, drive off the site. The whole transaction, petrol, car wash, and information, all conducted at the pump in the minimum possible time.
I'm with David Egan now, who's responsible for the forecourt show here at the NEC. I think particularly for the motorist who pulls up on the forecourt, things like the environment and safety issues are very big.
Yes, it's big in Britain, and as you know, in Europe now, it's a very big issue. Also, the type of fuels we use. Everybody's now familiar with the unleaded, and that's just one of many areas of development on the forecourt. The next stage that the motorists will become aware of is the smell will be getting less and less because of the technology applied, and this is all related to protecting the environment. Here at this show, there is many exhibitors who have specialized equipment who are supplying for what we call in Europe vapor recovery, and that is keeping these vapors contained within the forecourts and within the systems. We also have very interesting areas like here for the first time internationally. There is a company called Autofill who are exhibiting their robotic fueling. And this is where you can drive into a petrol station and without getting out of your car, the fuel dispensing pump itself comes, undoes the cap and fills your car.
Anders Dahlqvist from Autofill Europe, you've introduced the world's first robotic petrol pump. Tell us how long it took to bring this product to the market.
Well, to the market, from the start, it really took more than 10 years to develop the technology. And now I've been launching it for half a year ago in Stockholm.
So just run through what actually happens as you drive onto the forecourt with your car. You're ready to fill up with fuel. How does it work?
Well, you drive up to a terminal, insert your card, and the robot starts searching for your tank lid. It goes to your tank lid, opens the tank lid, and also starts refueling through the tank cap, which has to be exchanged. The whole process just takes approximately 90 seconds, and then the car is refueled. The robot goes back and returns to starting position, and the driver can drive away.
And you put your credit card in as you drive in, and it automatically charges your account?
That's right, in the conventional way.
And in terms of costs for the petrol stations, how does it compare with a conventional petrol pump?
You can say that as the autofill is much more effective than a conventional pump. One autofill have the same capacity as 2 to 3 conventional pumps, which means that in terms of investment per throughput liter, it is quite as effective as a conventional pump is.
Amazing. It shows the power of market forces, where if one fuel company offers a service or feature, others have to follow. Well, we have to take a fuel stop now. Join us very soon for more tips on automotive aerosol spraying. Hi, welcome back. Now, if you're like me, you want to keep your car in top condition. Many people spend a happy weekend tweaking and honing the performance of their cars to the maximum. But Vauxhall have come up with a system that offers an electronic answer to the age-old problem.
Well, we're back here again at Vauxhall's main headquarters in Luton, where we've come to take a look at some rather revolutionary software from Vauxhall called the Vehicle Information Processor. Now, as a driver of a car, you're always coming across those niggly little problems. You take it into your local garage, hopefully for them to sort it out. They say, sorry, we can't find any problem. Well, Vauxhall's answer to this is to come up with a special black box which they fit to your car, and then you take it back to your garage, link it up to a computer, and hopefully the mechanic can then diagnose the problem. It's called the Vehicle Information Processor, and let's take a look now at how it works.
Well, basically, if a customer has got a problem with their vehicle, we would sort of assess the difficulties they've got and see if our normal tools would isolate the problem. If not, we put this recording device on the vehicle, and once they've got it on their vehicle, allow them to go away. It could be for a week, 10 days, a year, or whatever, to try and isolate the problem. And then once they feel they've got the problem, we can then reprogram it and pull it up on the computer.
So by the use of these little black boxes, you put one into the customer's car, they go out for a week or a day or however long it takes before you think it's necessary, come back in, you then plug it into the computer and hopefully try and locate the problem.
Yeah.
So just run through, we've got a problem on this car here, you know there is something wrong with it, let's take a look and see if we can find what the problem are.
Right, what we would do, we go through a process of actually loading down the data for this particular vehicle, picking out what the vehicle is, its engine size, and actually program the processing unit. We then got all the trouble codes we can take off the system.
So it's able to identify virtually everything on the car?
Everything within the engine compartment we can identify at this point in time, or we can just say if we've got a good idea where it is, we can isolate it down to fewer units. But in this case we'll go for everything. It's been programmed, now we attach it to the vehicle and allow the customer to drive it away. And once they perceive they've got a problem, they can then come back and say the fault occurred again, and we've got a recording of it. We can take anything up to 28 different faults on the vehicle at any one time.
Well, messing about under the bonnet will never be quite the same again. Well, we were rubbing down last week. Will we at last get to the primer this week? I'm talking, of course, about the Inside Motors feature, where John Wright is trying to get a nasty scratch out of his Citroën. We're learning that you need the patience of Job to get a perfect finish, as preparation is everything.
Okay, looks like I'm going to have to go all the way back here. The scratch goes all the way back.
Yeah, it looks actually, John, as if you're going to have to rub every inch of this panel, because the important thing is that you take the gloss off the paint. Very difficult to get new paint to adhere to a glossy surface, so you must remove the gloss at least.
Right, let's keep going then.
I'm glad you got the big panel, I got the small one.
Cheers.
Right, John, it looks like we've hit our first piece of bare metal, and there it is. And you can see a little bit of chipping there on the paint. That, believe it or not, is a source of corrosion. There may even be 1 or 2 corrosion cells already in there, and if you left it, that'll just spread outwards.
What do we do to get rid of that then?
You can use something called a rust converter. Very, very easy to use. It chemically converts rust.
Right, that's not something we got when we got all the products out earlier, is it?
No. What we'll do, we'll rub the rust out of it.
Right, we've rubbed this down as much as we can, and it, to be honest, looking a bit drastic here. What's the next stage, Dave?
Well, if we weren't affecting this repair, John, then the rust would be a bit drastic, so don't worry too much about that. We've rubbed the scratch out. What we now need to do is prepare the surface for painting. If there was any dirt or grease on it, obviously we would have rubbed it off, but just as a belt and braces approach, what I'm going to do now is wipe this surface over with thinners.
Lovely.
Thinners are actually a mix of solvents, some of which we actually use in the manufacture of the paint. They are flammable, so treat thinners with the same respect as you would treat petrol.
Surely we can't paint straight away, aren't we going to?
What we're actually going to do is mask off these 2 panels just under the trim bar. For that we need some masking tape and plenty of newspaper.
Great stuff.
Right,
let's get that.
What I'm going to do with this section here is mask it off in a particular way. What we need is for this paint here to blend nicely with the existing paint on the wheel arch. So what I'm going to do is apply a piece of tape like that, and then just curl it back so that it's loose. As you spray the aerosol, this will feather the edge of the spray and give you a softer line. You'll still be able to distinguish that the line is there until you've used, your finishing polishes, things like that. So around the edges, it's easy with a trim bar because you've got a definite line. But if we're just repairing a patch, use this technique to just pull your masking tape back, create that softer edge instead of a harder edge, like
Lovely.
that.
Right, you can now see that he's got all the trim bars masked up. What's the next bit? Newspaper?
Newspaper, you'll be surprised actually at the extent of what we call dry overspray on a car. We're just going to spray this area, but if we don't cover all of that, all of this, all of that, don't forget the wheel and the tyre, with newspaper, you'll find it'll have a fine red dust on it when you finish spraying. So it's very important to protect the rest of your vehicle.
Yeah, I was thinking it was a bit on the drastic side.
It is, but don't worry about it.
Right, if you're as old as I am, you've heard of the Beatles newspaper taxi. Now we've got a newspaper Citroen. Right, Dave, what are we going to do now?
What we're going to do now, John, is spray the primer onto the sections that we've rubbed down. It looks a bit excessive, but all this amount of masking is actually necessary to protect the rest of your vehicle.
So I'm trusting you at the minute.
Trust me. The most important thing before you start using an aerosol spray paint is that you give the can a good shake. What we need to ensure is that everything that's in this can is thoroughly mixed up. Otherwise, it won't work properly. We actually recommend 2 minutes. It's a long time when you're stood there shaking an aerosol can, but believe me, it's necessary. We're now ready to spray. The key is, don't try to get too much paint on all at once. Build it up in light coats.
And we look forward to that showroom shine in weeks to come. Well, that's about it for this week. Thanks for joining us. Don't forget, next week we have an MPV special featuring all the main types of this new kind of vehicle group. Mike Rutherford will be telling us his forthright views on the MPV revolution, and we'll be showing you which marques offer the best value for money. The week after that, by the way, you can see how Mike Rutherford enjoyed his recent 40th birthday. Not for him a day of lazing around with a few drinks in the evening. Mike set himself the ultimate automotive challenge to drive £1 million worth of cars in one day. That's right, £1 million worth. Find out how on 4 Wheels Good in a fortnight's time. From all of us here on Granada Sky Broadcasting, it's goodbye.